we need some way to relate to that which is beyond us. We're talking about an infinite God. That's what he's called in the Kabbalah. We don't call him God, we call him the Ein Sof, the endless, that which is endless. We talk about endless light, infinite light. So how can we relate to that? So forget it. I just have to believe that it's so, and there's no way for me to grasp that. And whatever explanation, logic you can apply, I can say, well, who says that applies to the infinite? That logic does not apply to the infinite. So there's no way, you cut off any relationship I can have. So a basic idea in Kabbalah is that the way reality has been set up is as a bridge between the infinite and the finite human being. How can you have a bridge between the infinite and the finite? There's nothing between infinite and finite. Nevertheless, there's an infinite God. He can do anything, right? So he made this bridge of multiple universes standing between the infinite and us.
Is it so? It's a step. I mean, on the model of the mind of the universe, we understand a mind that is beyond the universe. Let me ask you point blank: is God the mind of the universe?
No, God is not the mind. This is an idea that was rejected. It's a Greek idea, and it seeped its way into Jewish thought, but it was rejected, that God is mind. You say, no. God is way beyond mind. But in order to relate to us, he says, okay, so I'll have mind in order to relate to you. There's a beautiful analogy for that of a father who wants to play with a little child. So the kid's 2 years old, playing with his blocks on the floor. And the father is a grown man, but he wants to play with a little child. So he can't stand up and then say, oh no, put that block over there and block. Start playing with the child. What do you got? You got to sit on the ground and play with the child. Right? What is the child like doing? The child likes to pile up the blocks and knock them all over. So a 40-year-old man doesn't really get into knocking blocks over. What's the big deal? But he wants to play with the child. So what does he say? He says, for now, I'm going to enjoy what my child enjoys. So we pile up the blocks, and then he goes like this, knocks them. It was fun, wasn't it? 40-year-old man having fun knocking, but it's ridiculous. But that's not the point. He wants to play with a child. And it's not, he's not pretending anymore. He's not even, he's really having this fun.
I know.
You had the experience.
I know that actually is fun to knock down blocks.
So God
and it's a good question of why it's fun.
God makes this world. He puts this being in this world, right? And he says, okay, that's neat. So I got this world, this fantasy of mine that I'm, created, but I want to relate to it. I got this little being over there. I want to have a conversation. I want to talk with this being, relate. How can this finite being relate to I'm infinite? There's nothing in between us. Okay, so I'm going to have this. He has awareness, I'll have awareness. He has consciousness, I have consciousness. He gets excited about things, I'll get excited about things. So God sort of writes himself into the story as this character. I've got this character in my story called God. That's me, in cameo, in my own story, right? And that's the mind of God that we're relating to. And it gives us a way to relate to him. This meeting place.
That's the mind of the universe, or?
Yeah, that's that mind. There's mind there. There's not just mind. There's emotions, there's kindness, there's compassion, there's might, there's beauty. There's all these things are there. And that's the meeting place. And it's a beautiful meeting place because when you think of all those things, when you think especially of human emotions, you realize that on the outside, they're visceral, they're earthly, but on the inside, they're infinite. They're paradoxical, they're impossible. They can never be defined. They're truly infinite. So when we get into that, what the human being really is, we have a taste of the infinite.
Well, I was just going to ask you, if you use the model of the playing with the blocks, it suggests that God doesn't really take it that seriously, and that he doesn't really invest himself in that game. The blocks, the child thinks that the parent is really enjoying that game in the same way that the child is enjoying the game. But in fact, the parent is holding back. And it's a bit of a ruse that the parent is playing, not just on the child. I mean, they're not tricking them in a mean way, but a ruse that they play on themselves and getting down on the floor.
If it were But I say a preschool teacher doing this. I've seen that. I've seen it done beautifully. Preschool teacher sitting there on the ground playing with the kids, and every minute scanning the room. Still an adult. So he's being a kid and being an adult at once. That's amazing. It's a real skill. But the preschool teacher was pretending. The father doesn't pretend. Right? The preschool teacher is pretending because I'm a preschool teacher, so that's what I do. The father is saying to himself, if I can't play with this kid and enjoy it, I'm not a father. And that's who I am. In all my essence and being, I am a father. More than anything else. When I leave this world after 120 years, I was a father. That's what I was. So he, with all his essence, he wants to be this. Now, so you think about God in the same way. God is not getting involved with us for any certain purpose. It's not to get a certain thing. So there's no measurement to it. It's that he decided with all his essence, this is what I want. So he's there with all his essence and being. While at the same time, he's this transcendent, infinite God. He's also this immanent God who's there with you right now. He's doing both at the same time. So how does he do it? He's God. You know?
It could have been a different game then. I mean, mind is playing blocks, but there are other ways. God could have chosen another game to play with us.
Instead of mind, something else, we don't know what it is because he didn't do that. You know, that's like he could have said, he decided, I'm going to make a world with time and space. You know, that's neat. Time and space, those are good things to make. How many times? Only one time. Okay, space, I'll have 3. No, maybe I'll have 17. Oh, no, 3. But he could have chose something else. Yeah. Not just more dimensions of space, or maybe time could go backwards and forwards at once, you know. He could have chosen something else besides space and time. There's a third thing, by the way. The Sefer Yetzirah says there's time, space, and consciousness. Scientists leave that one out, at least for the time being. They're getting there. They get there. But he could have chosen a fourth thing, or something else, or maybe just space and consciousness without time. He chose it this way, and he chose to play the game this way. And he puts all of himself into this game, and we can touch him in that game, and we can really get to him in that game. And we can relate to him because we, sort of like fractals, you know, you go deeper and deeper, and you keep on seeing the same pattern over and over again. He created us in his image. What's that image? That's that mind. Right? So he creates this image of himself as he appears within the game, and he creates us in that same way so that we can relate back to him. So by us examining, who am I? How do I work?
The soul of the world then, in a sense, precedes our souls. I guess if that...
In the ways they precedes, in the ways they have to... It precedes in the order of things.
Yeah, I mean order, not in the temporal order of things, but I mean... to put it in terms of...
it goes the other way around, because really, we are the goal. He said, this is what I want to get. This is what I want to achieve. In order to achieve that, I have to first have this, first have that, and then I get it.
Would you say that God's image, for example, that we are made in his image, so he has to create his own image first, as it were, in order to create us in that image? But the way you're putting it, as really the image was created there so that he could create us.
It goes backwards and forwards. The image, we don't say it was really a creation. The image is a projection of himself.
Right.
Deciding to be like this. It's a modality of his, put it that way, and we can get into that modality. The brilliance of Tanya is to use those metaphors of the human psyche to explain God, our relationship to God, the relationship of the cosmos to God, to explain all these things to the human psyche, and it becomes such a beautiful metaphor. Because otherwise, without that, you have no way, no grasp. What are you going to do? And that was really the failure, if I can say that, but it was the failure of Kabbalah until the Sefer Tanya.
Failure or...
Of Tanya.
I mean, was it really needed until that point?
The problem of Kabbalah was that the regular person not only couldn't relate to it, but thought that he could, and got it all wrong. You know, Kabbalah talks about...
most people even think about consciousness and the mind.
No, but it wasn't using those words. That was the problem. Kabbalah spoke in terms of there are these 10 spheres, right? There's these different worlds. There's different angels with these different names. And the average person think about, they're up there in the sky. There's these 10 balls up there, and there's angels fluttering around. There's different worlds. What does that mean, you know? Every time I talk about different worlds, people think, like, you mean like Mars? No. So people thought they understood and were getting it all wrong. And that's why Kabbalah had to be kept secret. Once he came up with using these ideas of the human psyche to explain these, understand that these 10 spheres, they're inside you as well. Oh, really? Where are they? No, that's your mind, your heart. Oh, now I know what you're talking about. And worlds, there are worlds inside you. There's the world of speech, the world of thought, the world of action. Oh, that's what you mean by a world. Oh, now I can relate to it. Do I understand what those things are? No. I don't understand what is love, what is compassion, what is mind. I don't understand it. But I experience it. I'm experiencing something that I can't understand. Oh, then you can experience God as well. You can experience that which you can't understand. It doesn't make sense, but you can experience it.